It all started on a quiet Thursday evening. The kind of evening when everything feels safe, predictable, and painfully ordinary. I was 32, living in a small town just outside of Nashville. My wife, Emily, was the center of my world. We'd been together for 8 years, married for 5. I thought I knew her better than anyone else. Turns out, I didn't know her at all. That night, I got home earlier than usual from work. The air was heavy with the smell of rain. Emily wasn't home yet, which was odd for a Thursday. She usually finished work by 5 and beat me home by half an hour. I remember smiling, thinking maybe she'd stop to grab dinner. But something felt off. The lights were on in the kitchen, yet the house was silent. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Normally, I'd never look. I trusted her completely. But this time, I hesitated. One small vibration. Then another, and then another. The same name kept lighting up the screen. Ryan. My stomach twisted. Ryan. Who the hell was Ryan? I picked up the phone, my hands trembling. A message preview flashed before I could stop myself. Can't wait to see you again tonight, Em. Last night was incredible. The words hit me like a truck. I froze. I didn't breathe. Didn't move, didn't think, just shattered. I dropped the phone on the counter, like it burned me. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at nothing. My heart pounded so loud, it drowned out every sound in the house. 8 years together, erased in a single text message, I felt the ground disappear beneath me. A strange calm washed over me, but underneath it, pure chaos. My mind tried to make excuses. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe Ryan was just a friend, but deep down, I already knew. Something in me broke that night. The man I was before that message, he didn't survive it. I grabbed my car keys and drove. No destination, no plan, just needed to move. The rain started to fall as I left the driveway. I remember gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The streetlights blurred through my tears. Every memory of Emily played in my head like a cruel movie. Our first date, our first apartment, her laugh when I told bad jokes. The way she used to look at me like I was the only man in the world. Had it all been a lie? How long had she been seeing him? Who was I to her now? A husband, or just an obstacle? By the time I pulled over, the rain had turned into a storm. I sat there in the car, drenched in confusion and betrayal. I didn't call her. I didn't go home. I just existed. Somewhere between heartbreak and disbelief, hours passed before I finally drove back. It was nearly midnight when I walked into the house again. Her car was in the driveway. The lights were off. Inside, I could hear the faint hum of the dishwasher. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, pretending nothing was wrong. She looked up and smiled. "Hey, babe, you're home early." Those words nearly killed me. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to throw that damn phone across the room. But I didn't. I just stood there, wet from the rain, silent. "Everything okay?" she asked, tilting her head. And I said, "Yeah, everything's fine." It wasn't fine. Nothing would ever be fine again. I went upstairs, pretending I was just tired. Every step felt heavier than the last. In our bedroom, everything looked exactly the same. Her perfume on the dresser, her clothes neatly folded, our wedding photo on the nightstand. I stared at that photo for a long time. We looked so happy, so damn young. I remember whispering, "Where did we go wrong?" I barely slept that night. When I did, I dreamt of her laughing with someone else. I woke up before sunrise, my chest tight, eyes burning. She was still asleep beside me, breathing peacefully. How could she look so innocent? How could she lie next to me after lying to me? I got out of bed quietly and went downstairs, made coffee I couldn't drink. I needed to know the truth, all of it, so I opened her phone again. This time, I didn't hesitate. There were dozens of messages, photos, plans. They'd been seeing each other for almost a year. A year of lies, of fake smiles, of pretending. She'd met him at a company event. He was married too. The betrayal cut even deeper. I sat there reading every word, every emoji, every "I love you." Each one felt like a knife to the chest. By the time she came downstairs, I was broken. She smiled again, unaware that her world was about to collapse. "Morning," she said softly. "Want some breakfast?" I looked up at her and finally said, "Who's Ryan?" The color drained from her face, her mouth opened, but no sound came out. And just like that, the truth began to unravel. For a moment, we just stared at each other in silence. Her lips trembled, and she took a step back. What are you talking about?" she whispered. I held up her phone. "You tell me," I said, my voice shaking. Her eyes darted to the screen, then to me. Tears instantly filled her eyes. "Please, Mark, I can explain." That word hit me harder than anything. There's no explanation for betrayal. I threw the phone onto the table. "Explain what, Emily?" "That you've been lying to me for a year. That every kiss, every I love you was fake." She covered her face with her hands. "I didn't mean for it to happen." I laughed, a cold, bitter laugh I didn't recognize as my own. "You didn't mean to cheat. You don't just trip and fall into someone else's bed, Emily." Her tears fell fast now. She tried to come closer, but I stepped back. "Don't," I said. "Don't touch me." The room felt too small, too quiet, too full of ghosts. Everything we built together, suddenly meaningless. "How long?" I asked. She hesitated. "Almost a year," she whispered. That was the moment my heart truly broke. A whole year. Birthdays, holidays, quiet nights on the couch, all a lie. I walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I don't know," I said. "Anywhere but here." She cried harder, begging me to stay. But I couldn't, not then. Not after that. I left. I drove until the sun came up. Ended up at a gas station outside of town. Sat there in the car for hours, staring at the sunrise, feeling absolutely nothing. When I finally looked at myself in the rearview mirror, I didn't recognize the man staring back. Eyes red, face hollow, like a ghost wearing my skin. I stayed at my friend Jake's place for a few days. He didn't ask many questions, just handed me a beer and said, "You'll talk when you're ready." That's the thing about real friends, they don't need explanations. When I finally told him what happened, he just nodded slowly. "She cheated?" he asked quietly. "Yeah," I said. "For a year." He let out a long breath. "I'm sorry, man." Those words, as simple, honest, hit harder than anything Emily had said. He didn't try to fix it, he just listened, and that's what I needed most. The next week was a blur. Emily called, texted, emailed, begged. I ignored every message. I couldn't even look at her name without feeling sick. My mom called one evening. She could tell something was wrong just from my voice. "Mothers always know," she said softly. When I told her what happened, she went silent. Then she said, "You don't deserve this, Mark. You gave her your heart," and she dropped it. Her words echoed in my head all night. I started questioning everything. Was it my fault? Was I too busy, too distant, too something? That's the poison of betrayal. It makes you blame yourself for someone else's choices. I went back home a week later, only to grab some clothes and paperwork. Emily was there, sitting on the couch, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were swollen, her face pale. "Mark, please," she whispered when I walked in. I made a mistake. I stopped in the doorway, feeling the weight of every memory pressing on me. "Yeah," I said quietly, "you did." She tried to take my hand, but I pulled away. "I never stopped loving you," she said, crying. I looked at her, the woman I once thought I'd grow old with. "I think you stopped a long time ago," I replied, and I left again. That night, I packed a bag and checked into a cheap motel. The room smelled like cigarette smoke and loneliness. But for the first time in days, I could breathe. I lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about how everything can fall apart overnight. Love, trust, peace, all gone in one heartbeat. I wondered if I'd ever be the same again. I wondered if I'd ever believe in love again. But somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered, "Maybe this is the beginning, not the end." The days after the motel felt long and empty. Every morning, I woke up to silence, no coffee brewing, no soft good morning, just me, my thoughts, and that damn ticking clock on the wall. I tried to work, but my mind wandered constantly. Everything reminded me of her, the songs on the radio, the smell of laundry detergent, even the rain. Funny how heartbreak makes the whole world look different. I stopped eating properly, stopped talking to people. I wasn't angry anymore, just hollow, but pain has a way of pushing you forward, even when you don't want to move. One evening, I decided to take a walk through the old park near downtown. It was the same place Emily and I had our first date. I don't know why I went there. Maybe to face it, maybe to say goodbye. The air was crisp, the trees turning gold with autumn. I sat on a bench, watching couples pass by, laughing and holding hands. It hurt, but it also reminded me, life goes on, with or without you. That's when I met her. She was sitting on the next bench, sketching something in a notebook. Dark brown hair, kind eyes, and a quiet calm about her. She looked up and smiled faintly. "Beautiful sunset, isn't it?" she said. I nodded, surprised that I even managed to smile back. We started talking. Her name was Claire. She'd moved to town a few months ago, worked as an art teacher at the local high school. There was something simple, genuine about her. No pretense, no masks, just real. We talked until the park lights flickered on. When I finally said goodbye, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace, a small one, but real. The next day, she texted me. She'd found my business card on the bench where I'd sat. "I think you dropped this," she wrote. I smiled for the first time in weeks. We started talking regularly after that. About life, about mistakes, about second chances. She'd been through her own heartbreak. Her husband had left her 2 years earlier. Somehow, our broken pieces fit together. There was no rush, no pressure, just two people trying to heal. We'd meet for coffee, then walks, then dinners. And with every conversation, I started remembering who I was before the pain. She didn't try to fix me, she just listened. And sometimes, that's all healing needs, someone who listens. Months passed. I finally filed for divorce. It wasn't easy. No one dreams of ending a marriage. But I knew I couldn't build my future on the ashes of a lie. Emily tried to reach out again. Letters, emails, one even slipped under my apartment door. I didn't reply. I didn't hate her anymore. I just didn't have anything left to say. Forgiveness isn't about letting them back in. It's about setting yourself free. I focused on work, friends, and slowly, on life again. Claire became my closest friend. We'd sit by the lake, talking about everything and nothing. Sometimes she'd sketch me without asking. Once I joked, "You're making me look better than I actually do." She smiled and said, "That's because I draw people how I see them, not how they see themselves." Something about that hit me deep. For the first time, I started to see myself not as a man who was betrayed, but as someone who survived. One cold December night, we were walking through town, Christmas lights everywhere. Snow was falling lightly, painting everything in white. She looked up and said, "It's strange how life breaks us just to rebuild us differently." I nodded. "Yeah," I said softly. "Sometimes the best things come after the worst." She smiled, that quiet, knowing smile, and took my hand. I didn't pull away. It felt right, simple, honest, and maybe, just maybe, it was love, the kind built on truth, not illusion. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about everything that had happened: pain, loss, healing, and now, hope. I realized that life isn't about avoiding heartbreak. It's about learning to love again, even when you've been shattered. A year passed faster than I ever thought it would. They say time heals everything. I don't think that's true. Time doesn't heal. It just gives you enough distance to see the wound for what it was. The scar remains, but the pain fades. One morning, I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about Emily in weeks. Not in anger, not in sadness, just nothing. And that nothing felt peaceful. I was finally free. Claire and I had become inseparable. We weren't rushing anything. We just existed together, easy and steady. We'd go hiking on weekends, cook dinner together, laugh at silly things. Her presence was calm, like a quiet sunrise after a long storm. She once told me, "Love shouldn't hurt, it should heal." Those words stayed with me. I realized how long I had mistaken comfort for love, how often I had ignored my own loneliness just to keep something that was already broken. With Claire, it was different. No games, no pretending. Just honesty, raw and beautiful. One evening, we sat on my porch watching the sunset paint the sky orange and gold. She leaned against me and said, "You seem lighter lately." I smiled. "Maybe I finally let go." She nodded softly. You can't hold on and move forward at the same time. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Not because everything was perfect, but because I was finally at peace with imperfection. Life had changed me, it had broken me, but it had also rebuilt me stronger, kinder, more aware. I started volunteering at a local community center, helping young people navigate relationships and mental health struggles. It gave my pain purpose. Every story I heard reminded me that heartbreak is universal, but so is healing. One afternoon, after a long session, I came home to find Claire sitting on the floor with paint all over her hands. She was painting a mural on a canvas, full of color and life. "Sorry," she laughed. "Got carried away," I smiled. "I think it's perfect." She looked up at me, her eyes shining. "You know, I used to paint only in gray, but lately, I see color again." That sentence hit me right in the heart. She didn't mean just the art, we both had found color again, in life, in love, in ourselves. That night, I finally opened the box I'd kept hidden, the one with photos, letters, and memories from my marriage. I looked through everything slowly, and then, without bitterness, I packed it all away and threw it out. It wasn't anger this time, it was acceptance. Because holding on to the past doesn't change it, it only weighs you down. The next spring, Claire and I took a trip to the coast. It was early morning when we walked along the beach, the sky soft pink and blue. Waves touched our feet as we walked, hand in hand. I told her something I hadn't said to anyone. "I used to think love was about never losing someone," I said. "But now I think love is about learning to find yourself when you do." She smiled, squeezed my hand, and said, "That's the kind of love worth keeping." And for the first time, I truly believed it. That trip became a turning point for us. I asked her to move in with me a few months later. She said yes. Not because she filled an empty space in me, but because she added to a life I'd already rebuilt. Together, we created something new, a home filled with laughter, art, and warmth. Sometimes I'd catch myself staring at her, realizing how far I'd come. From brokenness to wholeness, from betrayal to peace, from loss to love. And every time I looked at her, I silently thanked the pain that led me here. Because without it, I would never have found this version of me. One evening, as we sat by the fire, she asked, "If you could go back and change what happened, would you?" I thought about it for a long moment. Finally, I said, "No." She tilted her head. "Really?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "Because if I hadn't gone through all that, I wouldn't have learned what real love is," she smiled. "You're right where you're meant to be." And I knew she was right. The man who once thought his life had ended, had simply begun a new chapter, a better one, a truer one. And as I sat there with her, watching the flames dance and flicker, I finally whispered to myself, "I'm home." I never thought I'd feel hope again. The days after moving into my small apartment were quiet, almost painfully so. Yet there was a strange comfort in that quiet. I had nothing left but myself, and for the first time in months, that felt enough. I spent mornings jogging by the river, letting the cold wind clear my head. I started journaling, pouring out everything that had weighed me down. The anger, the heartbreak, the betrayal, all on paper. It was messy, painful, but it felt like progress. One Sunday, while waiting for coffee at a local cafe, she walked in, Claire. I didn't recognize her at first, the way she carried herself so freely. She smiled when our eyes met. "Mind if I sit?" she asked. I nodded, feeling a small spark of life stir inside me. We started talking about the weather, about books, about art, and slowly, it felt like the world was opening up again. Not to her, not yet, to me. I realized I had been holding my own heart hostage for too long. It was time to reclaim it. We met often after that, sometimes intentionally, sometimes by chance. Each encounter chipped away at the walls I'd built around myself. I laughed again. Really laughed. Not the hollow laugh of someone pretending, but the kind that comes from your soul. Months passed, and our friendship grew into something more. She didn't replace the past, she simply made the present brighter. One evening, we watched the sunset over the lake. The sky painted itself in shades of pink and gold. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I felt the weight of everything I had endured begin to lift. "I can't believe how far we've come," she said softly. I smiled. "Neither can I didn't think I'd ever feel whole again." Her hand found mine, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel broken. Love, I realized, wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about never being hurt. It was about choosing someone who helps you heal, piece by piece. That night, I wrote in my journal, "Pain taught me to value honesty, to see the people who truly care, and to never settle for less than I deserve." I knew I was ready to fully let go of the past, no resentment, no regrets. Just lessons learned and a heart willing to love again. The following spring, Claire and I moved into a small house together. Paintings on the walls, books everywhere, and laughter echoing through the rooms. We were simple, but happy. Life had given me a second chance, and I wasn't going to waste it. I still thought of Emily sometimes, not with anger, but with understanding. People make choices, and you can't control that. You can only control how you respond. And I chose life. I chose love. I chose hope. The man who once sat in darkness, drowning in betrayal, was gone. In his place was someone who understood the fragility of happiness. Someone who knew the true value of trust, and someone who could finally give and receive love fully again. Sometimes, when I look back, I marvel at the journey. From heartbreak to healing, from betrayal to trust, from loss to love. Every tear, every sleepless night, every painful memory led me here. I often tell my friends, life will break you, but it will also rebuild you, stronger, wiser, and ready for something real. Claire sits beside me now, painting quietly. I watch her, feeling gratitude deeper than words. I whisper to myself, and sometimes to her, this is what love should feel like, honest, free, and worth every lesson life ever taught me, and for the first time in my life, I know I am truly home.